For this time of the Quick Speed Shop, I'm working back on Project Rusty Junk YJ. I'm going to throw some Boomerang shackles on the back, and then we're going to get on here on the front. We're going to eliminate some of the stuff like the sway bar and get this thing to flex out a little bit more. I'm a professional, don't try this at home. Alright, so the back of the Jeep is done, but before I can turn it around, I gotta put the shackles on here. I've been waiting there on back order, but I've got a set. I ordered the Boomerang greasable shackles. Let's go ahead and we'll open them up and we'll check that out. These apparently are made by RT Off. These are made by RT Off-Road, but I bought them through a supplier, different supplier on the internet, like Morris Off-Road, I think. But basically, it's a Boomerang style shackle with greasable bolts. And I just ordered 2 for the back. I want to get this thing done. So if I like how these work out, I might put a set on the front later, but the front, I don't want to get into that right now. Okay, I just assembled one of the shackles here for you so you can look at it. We've got these bolts with the grease fittings. You see this hole here. The grease comes out. We'll grease the shackles. This middle pivot point, this is strengthening the center of the shackle up. But you mount these, and I'm pretty sure the Boomerang faces backwards, so I gotta read. Yep. So the spring end is here, and this is the vehicle end. And hold still. So your Boomerang you want to face backwards, so the Jeep would be here, and this would be the rear face would be here, so the thing would pivot out like this. So these give about 3/4 of an inch of lift. Not that I needed any more lift on this Jeep because it's way up in the air anyways. But I figured if I had to buy replacement parts, I might as well buy a little bit better, a little more heavy-duty stuff than the stock stuff. So they come with rubber bushings here, and the sleeves that go in for the rubber bushings, like that, to push through. I had urethane bushings that came with those spring hangers I welded underneath the frame. But when I got thinking about it, I want this thing to be able to flex as much as possible, and urethane is real stiff, and it's not going to let the spring twist as much, and this rubber is a lot more pliable. So I'm going to use the rubber bushings with these things, and it'll allow the springs just to twist into the holes a little bit more, because the rubber will give a little bit better than the urethane will. Alright, I got to set the rear end, hang the rear end down. I had it sitting on some cans here and some blocks just to hold it from hanging on the shocks. A trusty fluid film can there to the rescue. Bam. I can let this down. Whoop. And about there. First thing I do, we got our bushings here. I'm going to stick them up in the upper holes. Let's make sure they fit. Oh yeah, they'll fit in there. Oh, got anti-seize out of them already. So I've already got anti-seize in these upper holes because I had the urethane bushings in there. Uh-oh. Nowhere near small enough. Oh, come on. Fit those mounts alright. These are aftermarket lift springs that are on this thing. I don't know the manufacturer of them, but these came with urethane bushings, and the eyelet on these aftermarket springs is smaller than the stock Wrangler eyelet. So I simply did is I took this bushing and I rammed the steel in it and I put it in a vise, and I took my hacksaw and I just trimmed this down, trimmed it down around to get the diameter down. Here you can see the difference here. Now obviously it's super rough and all that, and if you're doing a vehicle is going to run on the street, you'd want to get the correct bushings, but I don't want to spend any more money on this thing for just driving around in the woods. This is fine, and this is cheap, probably Chinese rubber, so it'll get all turned into junk anyways. But I cut it down enough where I can take it and press it in here. I'll put some anti-seize on here. I'll press this in here. I'll whittle the other 3 down, and we'll go ahead and we'll put the rubber bushings in here, and it'll be fine. Good enough for who it's for, good enough for out wheeling in the backyard of this thing. So let's go ahead and throw this bad boy on here. I noticed that the grease fittings are loose in these bolts, so you don't want to tighten those down. So because the bolts are greased, I'm not going to put anything on the bolts here because they'll go through with the grease. But the center bolt here, which doesn't have a grease fitting, I'm going to put some anti-seize on that just to keep it going like that. Never had too much anti-seize, so that's on me already. So I'll take that and I'll take the collar. Bam. Let's hang this guy up on here. Bam, look at that. Nice. Alright. The nuts that hold this together are like a swedged lock nut. I'm using a regular nut just to hold the centerpiece. It's just to hold it together for right now. When we get those jam nuts, we'll take these down. They're 3/4 inch wrench size. See the nuts here, they're swedged, so they're lock nuts. Bam, there we go. Look at that. That looks perfect. Okay, got both sides bolted on. Let's go ahead and grease them up. It shouldn't take that much grease to get these in here because it's a tiny little bolt. Yeah, there we go. It's starting to come out the fitting. Get in there. Alright, greased her up good. Okay. Okay, let's set her down and see what happens. Ready? Well, I can see the tire's low on the driver's side. Bam! Look at that. Bam, there we go. Now I got the Boomerang shackles installed on the back. The back's nice and mounted up tight. Real high approach angle on the back. The rubber bushing is going to help this thing articulate a lot better. This thing has a ton of ground clearance now. So they cut the frame off and got rid of the stock gas tank. We're at 25 inches to the back of the frame rails off the ground, and it's like even the bumper's 28.5 off the ground. So that's a ton of clearance. You know, it's got a good approach angle here from the tires back to the bumper. You got almost a 45-degree angle between the shackle and the tires and stuff. So it's got a really good approach angle. A ton of room for wheeling. The rock sliders, they're 26 inches off the ground. So pretty much any obstacle that's like 2 foot tall or lower, this thing will go over. So I like the look of this. It looks like super tough. Got rid of those stock shackles, which were all worn out and junk. And now we got a good rubber bushings, which will allow this thing to flex some more. Pretty much the whole rear of the Jeep is done. So I just whip it around now, and got to get on to fixing the front frame rail by the steering box, and then build a front bumper, and this thing is going to be ready to wheel. I want to get this thing to flex a little bit more. In the rear, I cut the rear track bar off the rear end. We put those shackles on there, so that's going to help flex. In the front, I'm going to eliminate the front sway bar and the sway bar end links, and also the track bar, which is here. The bracket is in the rotted out part of the frame, so I'm going to cut it off. You don't need the track bar with the leaf springs. I don't know why Jeep added them. Probably helps just a little bit with the shackles being out in the front. But being an off-road Jeep, I don't care about that. I'm going to eliminate the track bars front and rear. But let's get the sway bar out. Before I want to do that, we're going to jack it up with a floor jack, and we'll measure the amount of flex we get with the tire, and then I'll take the sway bar off and measure it again, and we'll see what difference it makes. So I'm going to jack this up under the leaf spring and get this tire off the ground, and I'm going to jack it to the point where I'm almost starting to see daylight at the back wheel, and that'll tell me how much flex we got here. You can see that the tire's coming off the ground right now. Now with the sway bar hooked up, it's going to be pretty stiff, and it's not going to want to flex the front end that much. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to flex it just to the point where the right front tire is coming off the ground, which I think it is. Yep. Okay, it's like 1 inch off the ground, so let me let it down just a hair. Okay. Right there. So I'm going to measure out with a little, from the center of the axle shaft with this little level. Oops. I just want to see the center line of the axle off the ground. All right, I'm at say 23 1/4 right now. All right, I'm at 23 1/4 right now to the center of the axle center line to the ground. I just measured for grins and giggles to the top of the tire to the rear fender flares, and it's got 5 inches of flex on the back here. So actually, let me measure this one and see how much front axle has. That's 10 1/2. 12. So this one only got 1 1/2 inches of flex right now between the right and left side with the sway bar hooked up. So now we'll unhook the sway bar, and we'll see how much more flex we get. Okay, down here there's a lower sway bar end link and upper end link. I'm just going to remove the whole thing at once, so the lower mount mounts right to the lower spring plate. Get my breaker bar in. Hopefully this will come loose without breaking the stud off. We'll see. Oh yeah, no problemo. Perfect. Oop. That end link was shot anyways. Oop. That one just snapped off. Good thing I didn't want to run the sway bar because I'd have to get a new spring plate now. Bracket on the other side, there's 2 nuts. They go through an open bracket here. Hopefully they'll come off. Oh yeah. There we go, I liberated the track bar. Cut the bracket right off the frame because that's where I got to fix it anyways. Boom! The whole bottom of this frame rail is missing on this side, so the track bar had to come out anyways, but it's not going back on. So there, now I got the sway bar off. Here, that's not, don't have to yell. So now I got the sway bar off. I took the steering stabilizer off because it had a bad bushing. I might put it on. I might not need it. I'll drive it, maybe I'll drive it, I'll probably put it back on, but in the meantime, we got everything off I wanted to get off. The sway bars off, the track bars off. So let's jack this back up and see what our, see if it made any difference to the articulation here. I think that's it there. Turn the wheel back straight. Oh yeah, I'm at 25 3/4. 25 3/4. What were we before? It's 25 3/4 now, and I had 23 1/4. So it's 2.5 inches more articulation by getting rid of the sway bar. And I don't know if the track bar had anything to do with it too, but I got rid of that. So that is some more radical articulation for wheeling here. The rear seems to be unaffected by doing the front here, but it ought to be able to twist up pretty good now on the trails by eliminating the track bars front and rear and the sway bar in the front here. I am going to go ahead and hang the sway bar or the steering stabilizer back on. When I get some more bushings, I got to find some bushings off a shock to mount it back on the bracket where it was missing some. But this is a good test, and now I'm ready to replace this frame rail here and build a bumper, and this thing will be done and be ready for the trail. So in the meantime, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'm putting out new videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Hit the bell for alerts, tell your friends, and we'll see you right back here at the Quick Speed Shop, working on old Jeeps and rusty junk, sometimes hot rods, whatever else I got going on here in the shop.